And I'm sitting in the back of the cop car and the window's open and you just see Dave and he's just in tears.
I've actually never put anything like this on my YouTube channel. Nothing like this.
The methodology that I've used to scale my software companies, I've exited 3 software companies. It's how I buy software companies, I hire CEOs. You know, you and I share the same passion for our family, and there's zero chance any of that happens if we don't develop ourselves to be able to really value our time.
Do you do coaching?
Yeah.
You should coach me. Can I hire you?
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm here with Dan Martell. Dan, I've got a question for you.
Hit me.
If I'm going to create a SaaS product, what is the SaaS product I should create? Should I be focusing on AI? Should I be focusing on something that's super niche, or should I go super wide? And I'm going to tell you an idea I have, and then you tell me if it sucks.
I love it. Let's hear it.
You're the SaaS guy.
Yep.
In fact, when somebody tells me that they're developing something, I go, do you know Dan Martell? You need to know Dan Martell. And like Jerry Norton, who I just put you in touch with, and some other people.
I literally coach 47 of the real estate SaaS
You
founders.
are the guy. Like all of my friends that have software products you are their god, their software god.
I coach them, yeah.
Yeah, of course. And so we've got a company we're starting that is true AI. It's not built on like
GPT or
anything. It's like true AI that we're developing ourselves, that will have conversations with homeowners, conversations with agents.
Audio or text?
Text message.
Okay.
Audio would be so great. And
It's
I'm
coming.
sure
Give it 6 months.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
think
good
that we'll
yet.
adopt that like later on.
Yeah.
But we're currently at a point where we can go through basically 160 different conversation strains with these people and take them where they need to go based on their personality, their geographical location, whether they speak French or not, you know, those types of things.
I love it.
And have conversations with motivated sellers, have conversations with agents who have listings that maybe have been on the market for too long.
Yeah.
And then also have conversations with wholesalers who have deals out there in the marketplace that I can just go, all right, this is what I want to do today, accomplish this, go set up appointments for me to actually have the final conversation.
Yeah.
And it is so crazy how not one person out of tens of thousands of test cases that we've had have come back and said, is this a robot? They all believe that it's truly a human being. But it seems niche. It seems very, very niche. So is going niche on a SaaS product a better idea, or going wide in general?
So the way I look at software, the criteria for what makes a great product is, can you insert your solution into the workflow of the customer? So think of who you're selling to.
Okay.
Does this
Real estate investor.
does it allow them, does it provide a tool that is now part of their core day-to-day function that's used on a daily basis that and supports the revenue? And it could be a revenue maker or an expense.
So we're not trying to create a new stream of income necessarily and disrupt what they're already working on. We're saying, how do we amplify what you're already working on?
Yeah.
And to reduce maybe an employee or reduce some friction in your current workflow.
Yeah. And how does it plug into their existing systems? Because if it's a third-party tool, essentially it's like, how sticky is it? Rule number 1 of software, the reason why it's valuable and like companies get bought for like 10x top line revenue,
right?
It's because the retention numbers are so strong. And then there's this thing called expansion revenue. I'm getting a little nerdy. I'm not supposed
I want to hear all the
Yeah.
news, so.
Well, essentially it allows you to keep more customers. So it's like, that's why most messaging, so tools like email, Slack, project management, they have
Monday. What do we use?
ClickUp,
Eric, we use Notion.
Notion.
We use Notion.
And the reason why those tools are so valuable in the world is because once a customer uses it, they put all their data in it, and it's a daily usage. See, it's called the Octopus Method. It's super sticky. Like, for you to go from, let's think, an email marketing tool to another one, it's work.
It ain't going to happen.
No. I mean, if you do it, and I've done it a couple of times, it's like, you got to spend some real money, hire some professionals, deal with the downside. So that's the way I think about like any idea. So it's like, is this a cool hook? Yes. How do I insert that tool into their other systems, ideally CRM or sales systems or whatever, so that it is part of a solution that they just can't easily take out of their business? See?
Right.
And so that's one part. And then and most products, people say, oh, it looks like a feature. It's like, yeah, it could be a feature of something bigger, but you just got to understand what the product roadmap looks like. Like, what are we going to build long-term that this fits into so that it's a full solution? Because if somebody comes out with a competing solution that just happens to work better.
Which it happens.
All the time. I mean,
like,
this is literally the real estate, skip tree. I mean,
bro,
I can literally sit here and tell you.
Everybody comes to me and says, all right, you're the real estate guy. I want you to promote, affiliate. I want you to own part of this product. I go, nah, dog, I'm out. I'm not interested because in 6 months, somebody's going to beat your ass. They're going to create they're going to develop something that's 1% better.
Everybody's going to switch.
Everybody's going to switch because here's the challenge with real estate people. They're looking for the easy button.
Yeah. And it's transient-ish.
Very much.
Yeah.
Right. So you have people that come in, like we own a virtual assistant company as well. We do about $7 million a year top line. We've been around for 3 years. So we're trending and having a great time. Loving that business. The challenge with that business is that our average real estate client comes in, hires our virtual assistants, which we manage, and their average time is maybe 95 days. Okay. The average life of our customer is 95 days. I switch to an insurance client, somebody who's going out and selling insurance. It's like a year and a half.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
That's the lifetime value of a customer.
Right.
And that's why retention, can I keep a customer? When you look at software tools, it's how does this become part of their daily workflow that either makes them money or saves them money? Because if I can do those two things, or like, can I be part of that? That's where you have an opportunity to then say, okay, I've got a relationship with a customer. They use our product every day to make or save money. Now, how do I introduce another feature that I can charge them more? So, I mean, we've all experienced the death by 1,000 SaaS products because you start on a free product and next thing you know, you're at 50 a month, and then you turn around, you're at 5,000 a month. I mean, this is HubSpot. I mean, it's literally the world I live in.
Yeah.
So when I work with folks that have ideas, I'm always trying to kind of teach them that landscape, and then let's talk about the strategy to make sure that happens. Because if not, you'll spend a lot of time and energy building a feature that could be awesome today and then be obsolete.
And it's not
months.
cheap. That's the other thing too, is like some of these guys are developing things and spending $100,000 a month on development costs before they even launch the product. Some of these guys are like $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 or more, a lot of times more money into a product. And then by the time they launch, maybe 3 months later, somebody else comes along with actually better marketing, a better affiliate, right? Because a lot of times I look at SaaS products, I'm like, the success of a SaaS product in my mind, as a guy who pushes affiliates, comes down to who are your top 3 workhorses that are going to get the word out, especially in the real estate market.
Distribution, yeah.
Because there's guys and girls that are so good at marketing and getting a SaaS product out to the marketplace that no matter how good or bad the competitor is, if the competitor doesn't have a great affiliate or somebody who's pushing it, who cares, right? But somebody comes along with a worse product but has a better affiliate, they can come and wipe the floor with you.
That's what bugs a lot of people, especially if they're like more pure software folks that have no marketing gene. They're like, I've got a better product. Why
doesn't
don't people
matter.
use it? I'm like, it literally doesn't matter. Distribution is part of the equation. Even being too early. Like you might be building something that the market's not even ready for because it's almost magical that they consider it like there's no way that this can work, right? Like in the world of, innovation that I come from, being early and being late is just as wrong as being wrong. Right. So
this is what I love about real estate investing is that I'm probably 90% of what I touch on a daily basis is just buy and hold. And I'm like, I don't have to worry about the trend. I don't have to worry about what I worried about when I was wholesaling or fixing and flipping.
Like most durable,
basically bulletproof.
True, yeah.
Bulletproof. And I can raise my rents every 36 months. I've got the tax benefits. I've got all the things. But what happens with that is as you get more and more successful, you get people that have SaaS products and go, partner with me. The great thing is I have a partner named Josiah in my fund. So we have a multifamily fund and that's going incredibly well. And he comes to me and goes, I want to implement this with all of our students. We have about 35,000 students between Jamil and myself. And he goes, I want to implement this tool and we've already gotten this far. Do you want to come in and be a partner? And I'm like, look, bro, I'm not going to carry any weight other than I can help out with the distribution and I can be a megaphone.
Yeah.
And he's like, perfect. That's all I want you in here for. And I want you to stroke a check for development, whatever else. So I'm sitting here going, that will change the game for sure. But you have to beat everybody else to the market, I believe. And then you have to gather everything else up. You have to gather the whole marketplace. And then you have to retain everybody if possible in real estate. And then secondly, you have to make it like a name brand that is so obvious, kind of like PropStream. Like PropStream has become that software, or Batch Leads to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Batch Leads obviously came after PropStream to the point where somebody joins real estate world as a biz op and they go, I'm going to go to YouTube and everybody's talking about PropStream or everybody's talking about Batch Leads.
Yeah.
So if you can get there, great. Nobody else is going to be able to come up and bubble up and just take you over. But SaaS is so crazy to me. It seems so competitive. Somebody can come along very easily with a worse product. And if the timing's wrong, the timing's wrong and you're done.
Yeah, it's fascinating because like even in the Valley, you know, in San Francisco, kind of where I come from, like, you know, there's accelerators. So some people can come out of nowhere, decide to come after your market, and they've got so much funding that even if you have distribution and you have the dollars to spend on development, like these folks are going to come and launch a freemium solution. So they'll essentially undercut you by
just a loss leader and lose $20 million for a year just to cut you out.
Yep. Just to build the audience. It's called a land and expand, you know, land grab opportunity. And because they're well funded, you know, on the back end of that, that's where the Airbnbs and the Ubers and all these companies that at the initial stages, there's no profit to be made. I mean, Amazon to this day has still not made a profit, but what they've committed to the market is we are going to be a winner takes all kind of solution. So it's just a different game, but I usually get the call when the person's, you know, $500,000, $2 million, probably the worst I've ever gotten is 13 million in, haven't launched, and is asking, what do I not understand about
13 million in and they haven't launched?
Yep. And those are the folks that have a very profitable business. And I'm not going to say the industry, but I got a 100 million plus year business that's generating 15 to 20 million EBITDA. And then they have this crazy tech platform that's going to, you know, help their business and revolutionize the industry. Mm-hmm. So for them, you know, it doesn't matter. It's your equivalent of 100K a month. To them, it's $1 million a month. And, you know, some person they talk to has a dev shop and they go, hey, I'll partner with you on this. You cover my costs. We'll become partners. And the guy's got, and then there's this scope creep thing that happens where, you know, there's, hey, I got this other idea. Let's add this. And this guy over here is saying, of course.
Yeah, you're paying for my stuff.
That sounds great, Pace. Let's do that.
You're covering all my costs.
Add this feature. Let's do this. And their agency's growing, this dev agency. So yeah, I get the call when people are like, what do I do, Dan? And I'm like, let's get on a call. Let's look at it. This is what I do for my friends. I literally, they have these like software moments and I usually get the call. I look at it and I kind of.
Do you find you're telling people to not do an idea more than you're telling them to do an idea?
I'm just giving them counsel on like how to change their approach to deploying and building.
I mean, you gave me some nuggets here too that I'll take back to Josiah, and Josiah will already have known some of them, but how did you even become the guy that is the guy? Like, how did you get to the point where your marketing's so great, everybody knows you as the SaaS guy, where you are the whisperer? Sounds like you have experience down in San Francisco area.
Yeah. I used to live there for almost a decade. So what's even crazier, Pace, I'm not even sure if you know this, but like I grew up chaos, a lot of issues at home. Mom was an alcoholic. Dad wasn't around much. Second oldest of four. Eastern Canada, small town, French Canadian, je parle français. And I got in trouble with the law, like 13, 14, you know.
Drugs? Yeah. Stealing?
Yeah. So got diagnosed with ADHD at 11, had an anger issue as a kid, taken out of my home, put in foster care.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Yeah.
Foster care.
Yeah.
Like what was going through your mind at the time? I guess for me, I come from the opposite. I tell everybody I was born on third base. I didn't have to go through the dugout or the batter's box. I didn't even have to have a chance to swing. I just started on third base.
I don't understand how you're sitting in this chair. How did you have so much success?
My parents are really hardworking, but we had 12 kids. Mom and dad are still together to this day. Yeah. Super religious to the point where it's like work. Work is our religion, basically. Yeah. And so I got here because of sheer work ethic. Yeah. But usually the people that become incredibly successful like yourself had a background that's like, I want more. And you went through some troubling time where you become callous to pain. Totally. And you go, I can get through basically anything. But what was at 13, do you remember your mindset back then?
Totally.
You did not care about the foster thing? Was it because your parents were chaos? Was foster care actually a better fit for you?
It was a relief.
Oh, relief. Okay.
Yeah, I was 11, 12 when I ended up with a foster dad. His name was Dave.
Cool guy.
His first. I've since met him. I laugh because I was his first foster kid and his last. And
oh damn! Okay.
Yeah, because he got a handful. Okay.
Yeah.
I was a very creative, energetic kid, and he wanted to be my buddy. I didn't need a buddy. I needed somebody to set some parameters and
you needed
structure.
a disciplinarian.
I just needed somebody to be like, these are the rules. And I tested them every day. I mean, I convinced them to buy me a slingshot because we should go to the range and shoot the slingshot, and we need the steel beads. And he's like, what? And I'm like, it'll be fun. And then he's like, do you know why all the streetlights are busted out? And I'm like, there's this kid on my bus in the morning. Guarantee it's him. I mean, it got to a place where I literally, we're going camping, and I knew there was this fireworks store on the way to this place. And I said, we should buy some fireworks for tonight. And Dave's like, okay, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I've never had a kid before, and fireworks are neat. So we stopped. We bought these Roman candles.
Oh my gosh, that's the best firework of all time.
It is. I mean, it's
for people that don't know what a Roman candle is. Basically you can shoot them out of your
stick of fireworks.
And me and my buddies would do this in the fields, and you would you cover your eyes.
Yeah,
and
used to wear goggles.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're in Canada, ski goggles.
Smart.
Yeah, or motorbike goggles. But after dinner, we should light the fireworks. I was like, you know what? I'm tired. Let's just call it a night. We'll do it some other time. Because then he'd bring them back to the house. They were in the house. And one day he left me by myself. I go and find this 12-pack of Roman candles. I set up shop in the living room. Okay, now Dave never had kids. So what did he have? He had fancy stuff. He had a fancy couch. He had a fancy carpet. He had a fancy bookshelf. And I'm sitting there in the center of his living room with a pile of, because I figured I'll cut off 25%. He'll never know the difference. And I'm making these mini Roman candles from everything. I've got a candle and duct tape, and I turn around and knock the candle into this pile of Roman candle dust, and it goes off. 4th of July in his house. He's at the farmer's market.
Wow. I
run into the kitchen, because he showed me around safety first, and then he shows me this little white fire extinguisher most houses have. That does 0, and it felt like 15 minutes, probably lasted 60 seconds, but when all the smoke settled, I just went and got my backpack, filled it up with clothes, and laughed.
Oh my gosh.
There was no way.
You never saw him after that?
There was a few emotional moments. I went on the run for 3 days. I slept at my friend's house, told his parents that Dave said it was okay. It was a weekend. Happened on a Saturday morning. And on Monday, his mom called Dave because they'd been looking for me. So the cops came and picked me up at my buddy's house, brought me back to Dave's house, and I'm sitting in the back of the cop car, and the window's open, and you just see Dave, and he's just in tears.
Because he missed you, or because of the house?
Because he doesn't know what to do.
Wow.
He's like, I can't handle him.
He had no tools.
He's just like,
I'm out of this.
And
you were his last kid.
I was his only kid.
Wow.
Yeah, I was his first and his last, and I ended up in a group home. Because of, where do you put a kid? Nobody wants you. So I ended up in this crazy group home with teenagers that were the
challenge
17.
with the group home, from what I understand, because I owned 4 of them, but I didn't manage them, and I got out of it. It's because every time I drove by the property, it was people had knives. There was drugs were being.
Dude, I'm 12, and I'm living with 17-year-olds that all have criminal records.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Teaching me stuff I should have never been taught.
Putting you in touch with people that have things that you shouldn't have access to.
So that's where I got introduced to drugs.
Wow.
And my life spiraled out of control. So I ended up in juvenile detention the first time I was 15.
Juvenile detention is because you got arrested and you. Okay.
Shoplifting and selling drugs, and got out. Said I was going to clean up my act. I lasted less than a day.
How the hell did you make it out of this, dude?
It's crazy. So I almost took my life, high-speed chase, 16, because I said if I ever went back, I'd pull the gun and let the cops take my life. And for whatever reason, I woke up the next morning in a jail cell sober. Gun got stuck. And I turned to God, man.
Wow.
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't have a relationship with God.
So what does that look like at that point?
Hey, man, if you're really there, I could use some help.
Wow.
And I just promise I'll just be good. That was it. There's no grand scheme. It's hey, man, I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know if I'm looking at, 5 years. I messed up. I need your help. I ended up doing 6 months in an adult prison.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, get you off the street, get you away from those people, get you away from drugs.
And it was a cool kind of area that they had a rehab center in the unit I was in, there's 12 of us. And eventually I got out of there, and I went to a rehab center for 11 months. So I got out of there, put into to finish off my sentence.
Did you have good people around you in both of those places?
Not in prison. I did have a guard though. His name was Brian,
and he befriended you.
Yeah.
What about in the rehab center afterwards?
Yeah, that was a great place. That place saved my life.
Okay.
It's a big part of my life.
Because it seemed like what you were missing is you were missing a mentor. You were missing a guy that, like, obviously Brian, the guy that you burned down his house.
Oh, no, that was my foster dad. His name was Dave.
Okay, so
but Brian was the guard. Brian was the first person. Dave
so he was a
tried.
good mentor.
Yeah.
Dave tried. He just didn't have the tools. Didn't know what he was doing. And you were chaos. You were like a raccoon.
I was manipulative. I was a liar. I was like, I mean, I was really good at not doing anything good.
Right. I mean, obviously coming where you were from, right? Like in what was going on in your own house.
Yeah.
So you needed a mentor. So when you went into that spot and those people, that 12 or 13 people that were in that group home, or not group home, but the rehab center?
Prison. Well, no, the rehab center was like, so I went into prison for 6 months.
Right. And then you went to the rehab center
to prove myself. Yeah. And then because the judge was like, no, you're not getting the rehab center. You're going to go serve some time and show us that you're serious. I met Brian there. He's the first.
What a good judge.
Yeah. Judge McKee's his name. And it's so crazy. Like,
it's funny that you know the name of a judge at 16 years old.
Well, dude, when he sentenced you in your heart, you know what I mean? Like, there's a few moments, these core memories you have in life. You kind of remember all the details. And I remember being so upset at him. Like, you understand. Like I'm
F
in
you,
shackles.
dude. Are you kidding me? You don't understand.
Shackles, brought back to the holding cell, like going, I can't believe he just did that. He sentenced me to essentially 2 years. I didn't know I was going to, so I ended up 6 months, met this guard, Brian. He looks at me in the eyes and tells me I don't belong here. He goes, I don't even understand what you're doing here, Dan. I see a lot of kids that have been here for a decade. You don't belong here. And it was just like, why would he say this? Like,
why did he say that? He saw something in you?
He believed in me, and he saw something that, and maybe, like, I don't know, you know, it's like sometimes you're not ready to hear things. Like, I don't know if any adult at any point ever said that to me, but it was just like who he was in the position. He had no reason to say it, but he sat me down and he took the time out to just look at me in the eyes and say, I don't even understand what you're doing here, man. You're not like the rest of them.
Thank goodness for that guy.
It changed everything. It was like a seed.
Does he know that? Does he know, like, now?
I found him. It's hard, as you can imagine, to find a prison guard.
Right.
But you know what's funny is he kind of doesn't even remember the conversation.
Wow.
Because I think he might have did it quite a bit.
Well, he's a good guy.
He's a great, great man. So I ended up in this therapeutic community called Portage. It was built in the middle of nowheres. So if you ever tried to run away, you'd be walking on this back road for hours before you even got to the highway. Nobody'd pick you up because they knew where you came from. And this place rebuilt everything. It taught me about my emotions, my story, my narrative. It was like, today it would be like the best personal development program you could ever go through as a 16, 17-year-old. Rebuilt the relationship with my family, fixed the trust I'd lost with my brothers and sisters, taught me just a completely different way.
Man, people wait till they're 45 to start working on that stuff.
I had a master class. I didn't understand at the time, but what happened is at the end of that program, I was helping Rick, the maintenance guy, clean out one of the cabins. It's built in an old church camp. And in one of the rooms was this old 486 computer and a yellow book sitting next to it on Java programming.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's divine. Like,
You get what I'm saying?
wow.
Yeah.
The opportunity of a lifetime right there.
Didn't know. This is 1998. I get out and discover this little thing called the internet. So when you ask me that question, yes, YouTube. People know me because of the content I put out there, and yes, all this other stuff. But it came
it came from a moment.
Stuff to say, and it just became my new obsession. I literally, most people that become sober, they're just, sober alcoholics or sober addicts, where their mentality is all messed up because they don't have anything positive to replace it with. And I went from like being addicted to substances and essentially not wanting to feel, to then finding this thing that I just allowed myself to be obsessed with. Like, my dad made a commitment when he saw how passionate I was about writing code. He said, I will buy you any book as long as you finish the book. And he probably spent $3,000 over the next couple of years.
On like $10 books.
Yeah. And I would just sit there and just stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning and build stuff. I mean, I just built stuff.
Do you feel like you weren't challenged younger? Like, that finally was something that challenged you at
If you ever meet my dad, Victor, he'll tell you. I used to tell Dan if he could just find something he's passionate about that wasn't illegal, I think
this kid will light the world on fire.
And I'll tell you, when he saw that, He was like,
those are the best ways to understand where people came from, in the sense of like, what was the real nitty gritty thing, right? For me, we don't need to talk about my story, but when somebody asked like, how did you get into the thing? I was like, it was one phone call that came at the exact right time, but there was a series of events that took 10 years to get to the point where that phone call actually meant something to me, that I said yes to that phone call. And so when people say, how did you get into this thing and you became the guy that is known for such and such, it was that one phone call. And for you, it wasn't me picking up a book. It was the series of things that led me to the point where that book and that computer actually meant something to you.
Yep.
Crazy.
I know.
So was there a point where you started making money from doing this stuff, coding for people, making websites?
It took a while. I would build stuff. I always joke with people and they say, well, how many companies have you had? It's like, well, is it how many domains I've bought? How many projects have I started? Like, what
how many ideas that
is
never
it incorporated companies?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I mean, the first thing I ever built, I built a cottage website for my dad. He had this little cottage we had as a family, and he'd rent it out for a couple of weeks of the summer to pay for it.
So it was like Airbnb before Airbnb.
This is 1998. It was called maritimevacation.ca. And I told him it cost $200 because I needed the money to buy a server. So he's like, I just need a page so I can stop answering these same 14 questions when they call. The same questions. Is
right,
it available?
Of course, yeah.
Do you accept dogs? How far from the
How
beach?
close is a restaurant?
All that.
Yeah.
So I told him it's $200. I'll build it for you. And he's like, that sounds really expensive. I heard it's free. And I was like, no, it's $200. And I ended up getting this server on this company called oneandone.com that could run the software I needed because I wanted to build an app. I didn't just want to build a web page, right? It wasn't HTML with some photos.
When somebody says, how do I raise money for my app, Dan?
Yeah.
You go charge somebody overcharge somebody for their website.
Pre-sell the product. I've been doing this since I was a teenager to my dad. But what happened was I built this thing and I had my dad as a customer. And then I'm like, okay, why isn't anybody showing up? And I remember talking to my buddy Dave, and he was a bit of a burnout. He was like in the networking side of the internet, because like we were all internet friends on IRC or back then. Yeah. And he's like, yo, dude, I think there's like a tourism guide that's got like all the cottages and bed and breakfasts. I'm like, what are you talking about, Dave? He's like, dude, I've seen this magazine. It exists. And I'm like, where? He's like, at the tourism place. And I didn't even stop. I like left. He's talking to me, tell me this. And I
dropped the phone.
Yeah. And I went to like, those info centers.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So like on the highways as you come into a city.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, there was literally a magazine that the province, the state, has all, and the half of it is all the bed and breakfasts and all the cottages. It's all the places to stay.
Man, this must have been well before Airbnb and all.
Oh, this is this is
internet's just starting.
This is literally 98. I mean,
Yeah.
Amazon started in 96. This is very early days. And essentially paid my littlest brother, Mo. I have two younger brothers, but Mo was 5 years younger than me. And I said, I'll pay you $3 to fill in Microsoft Access database, all these addresses and names. And then I did a mail merge in Microsoft Word. So I didn't know anything. I wasn't a marketer. This is like, there's nobody teaching me this stuff. I just thought if I send a letter that says, have a website for your bed and breakfast, fill out the form and send me $30 and I'll send you back a link.
Wow.
And I just so he filled it out. I did the mail merge, printed it out, put the addresses, stuck them on and put it in the mail. Okay. So like 6 days later,
gangster,
I come home.
I love this.
My dad checks the mail. And there's like 17 envelopes
with $30 in them.
Well, he didn't know. He's like, what is this? And I just was like, oh,
it worked.
We go in the kitchen and we start opening it up. You gotta understand, there's envelopes and cash. The first thing my dad says to me is, what did you do?
Oh, of course. I would too. I mean, knowing your history.
He was like, what did you, he was like pissed. And because he doesn't know that I built his webpage for other people.
Yeah. Now you have a server.
And I explained to him, I said, Dad, you're not going to believe this, but maritimevacation.ca, that URL you have, that's actually like a site where people can list their cottages. And I built this thing. And he was just like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I can't believe they sent me the money in the mail.
My gosh, dude.
Yeah. I even had like a little like,
there's so many lessons there. So many lessons there. And especially you have a paradigm shift of I can do a thing and money will come in.
That making $1 from a stranger
it's addictive.
It's the difference between going from amateur to pro. I don't care who you are.
$1.
The first time you sell something to somebody isn't a family member. not a friend. That was off the internet. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Before that, I was building like stupid stuff. And, now what did I learn? Because it failed, unfortunately, is you got to plan for success. I called it maritimevacation.ca, which meant my total market was the Maritimes of Canada, which is 4 provinces. And the guy at thecottage.com came in and took all my customers. He had a better product, a better name, better marketing, better SEO, right? And then, then VRBO came first, then Airbnb way later.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But it's just, to me, I've always built solutions to problems I've had. My brother in the real estate side and just myself. And I just have a lot of fun creating. Like, that's my happy place. I like to build stuff. Now I just build companies. But that's how I got into software.
Wow. When did you escape Canada and get over to California? And then when did you escape California and get back to Canada?
Yeah, it took, so I left when I was 21 after 2 failed companies. So that's why people see me today and they're like, oh, you're pretty young for a guy that has his own plane and flies around and does all the stuff I do. And it's like, yeah, but I just started. I'm 26 years of entrepreneuring. And when I say like real, I'm like not messing around, not a side hustle, like unemployable, unapologetic about it. I don't care. I'd rather get rich or die trying. Like my dad would beg. He's like, you should really consider getting a programming job. They make a lot of money. I go, never going to happen. Can't do it. Won't do it. It's just not in my.
You're a better man than me. I've had one job and it was my previous wife. It was 2008 crash. I was in gas and oil manufacturing, owned a manufacturing business, and all of our clients lived up in Calgary.
Where at? Midland?
In Utah. So we were manufacturing. We had 250 employees, tons of welders, everybody you could imagine that needs to build a steel fabricated tank. And we would ship them up to Calgary. And the price of a barrel of oil was like $140, $150, and then overnight, $25.
Yeah.
Lost everything, right?
I remember that.
Lost everything. So my wife at the time was like, you really, if you want to stay with me, you got to go get a job. So I was like, I don't even know what a job means. I mean, when I was younger, I would work at like, Smith's bagging groceries after I had like high school release, and I would go work at a job because I had to have a job, not a business, in order to get those school credits. But that was it. And so I go, all right, I'm going to find somebody who's got a good job. My brother-in-law says I work at GoDaddy. I make a couple $100,000 a year, and I'm in like the domain stuff where I dedicate my time to Ford and GM, and I work on their extra domains and whatever else. I'm like, okay, how do I get in? He goes, well, you got to start at like 40 grand a year. I'm like, I'm used to making like $300,000-$400,000 a year. What are you talking about?
That's crazy.
But if it's going to save my marriage and I can work my way in and I can do some side stuff on the side and make the difference in my whatever, I'm in there. I'm 3 days in GoDaddy. And I look at my phone, I pull up my phone, and somebody comes over and they go, you can't look at your cell phone while you're at work. And I go, I stand up and I go, I'm out.
Peace.
That was it. And I told my wife at the time, I said, if that is what you need me to do, you married the wrong person. And this is obviously not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm allergic to the same thing you're allergic to. I can't, I'm unemployable.
Yeah, don't constrain me. Don't.
So you never had to go, you never did a job, you never did any of that stuff.
That's not, no, I freelanced.
Okay.
I've always been self-employed, at the end of the day, even if you have a business, you have customers. So,
That's true,
I freelanced for a bit. After the 2 failed companies, like it hurt.
Right.
I tried. I got like 10 grand in debt at like 20, 21.
And that's like $20 million when you're like 50.
Yeah, it's like the end of the world. Don't know what I'm going to
10 grand. How am I going to get out of this, dude?
Dude, I was like, it took me for a while to pay it off. And once I paid it off, I like shut down my credit card, my line of credit.
Oh, shit. I've done all this stuff too.
Dumb stuff.
So good. So you're 21.
Yeah. What I ended up doing is just realizing if I didn't get out of my hometown, like there's a good chance I'm going to wake up in 20 years and go like, why did I never chase it? I don't know why.
Did you have the feeling that whole time that like you were meant for something bigger than the town you were in?
Not at first. It was after I started building those companies, Maritime Vacation, then I did a web hosting company. I started meeting other entrepreneurs, and I'm like, not that I was egotistical. I just wasn't impressed. Like I was like,
with them?
No, not the local folks. No. Because I was like into personal development. Again, I just got out of 17. When I was 17, I had a masterclass in personal development.
So you were like, you saw these people and you're like, man,
they're not thinking big.
Right.
Literally, they're acting big, but they have like a $500,000 a year business, and that's like and that's good for them. And that will be what. And I know to this day, that's where they're at.
Right.
Right, because they're a big dog in their hometown. Right, they drive maybe the Mercedes or the BMW, and they got the bigger house. But like that's just what they. Because even to them, when they grew up, like that was success. Right. And I just was like, I'm a software guy. I want a Silicon Valley tech. Like there's got to be a bigger thing. So I just decide one day I was freelancing with this company. I remember I called my dad and I said, I'm leaving. And he goes, but what about this project you're working on, this big company that was like the biggest employer in the city? And I said, I quit. Like I cut the contract off because I was going in every day freelancing. And he goes to me, he goes, that is the worst decision you've ever made. And I said, this is the thing, Dad, this is literally out of everything I've ever done. This is the thing you're telling me is the worst decision I ever made. And he's like, I can't believe you did that. Because to him, he was proud telling his friends that my son works, he has his little business.
X, Y, and Z company.
Yeah, it's called OYO Technologies. And I left. And I'd love to tell you it all worked out, but I left September 9th, 2001. And when I was driving across Canada, especially like in the prairies, it's flat as air.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing out there.
Dude, you can set the steering wheel and take a nap, go to sleep, and you're fine. 9/11 happened. And every opportunity I had on the other side of Canada, like all the conversations I preceded with all these different people in business and all that stuff. I mean, the whole world, as you know, it just froze.
Yeah.
It's like stopped. And I couch surfed I didn't have any money. I paid off the line of credit.
Yeah, you had the
credit card,
shut
it all down. And I couch surfed for almost 3 months and almost came home with my tail between my legs. And I was lucky. I just like out of the blue, I get a call from a recruiter that said, there's this company, you know, oil sand stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Syncrude.
Yeah.
One of the biggest oil sand companies in the world. They had just bought this software that I knew because I like.
And they didn't know it.
They didn't know anything about it.
We got the software. We need somebody who knows how to do it.
$3 million on this enterprise portal software, and you have this weird experience that because I helped some company install it and configure it. And are you open to talking to them? And I was acting all like coy, like, you know, I'm pretty busy.
You're sitting on the couch in your boxers.
No, dude, I'm like
somebody else's couch.
I am on somebody else's couch, $0 in the bank, 3 months of couch surfing, and I'm just luckily I had a bit of.
You're just chill. You're like, yeah, I gotta change some things around.
Yeah, but yeah. I'll be open to the conversations, but I'm pretty busy. And I remember I got on the call with the hiring manager there, and then eventually the CTO. And I'm 21. They want me to lead a team to deploy this.
Wow.
Now, I don't think they ever looked at the resume. I think it's because the recruiter found a person, throws it at the company. Oh, yeah. They don't even look at any.
Thank goodness the processes were all dialed in.
Yeah. And I remember they were like, well, what's your rate? And I said, well, I'll have to get back to you. I just got to run some numbers because Fort McMurray, because they wanted me to move up there. I call my dad. Okay. Now, my dad worked in Westinghouse, eventually became Siemens. They got acquired.
It's a big deal.
Big business company. So I said, Dad, what should I charge? And he's like, he calls me Daniel. Dan, you know, so Daniel is my name. He goes, $150 an hour. I said, Dad, don't screw this up for me. No. I hire consultants all the time. It's $150 an hour. Trust me. I said, Dad, I love you. You're trying to mess this up for me because you want me to come home.
You're thinking 150 is like 3 times too high.
I'm thinking 150 is, I didn't even know that was a thing in the world. Like, I was like, what's 150? What does a CO make? $100,000 a year? That's like $50 an hour. How can you justify this? He goes, Daniel, it's Syncrude. Trust me, 150. So I call the company back and they say, what's your rate? I said, $75. And they go, sounds good.
Without a hesitation.
Didn't even flinch.
You freaking left money.
They were billing me out at $200. I found that out later.
Wow, they would have been so happy at 150 too.
Oh, my dad, and they covered all my expenses, which I didn't expect, so that was kind of awesome. And that
you would have got that job at 150.
I would have got 150 plus my expenses at 21 years old, making $300,000 a year.
Wow.
I lived off of, and this is what's cool. Like the first paycheck, dude, carpe diem. I went on a road trip with my brother, and we spent $12,000 on new snowboard gear and like literally stayed at $500 a night hotel. I thought I had won the lottery. nobody told me about taxes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, all of a sudden I was like, my dad's like, Pierre told me about his trip. It sounds like you guys had some fun. I'm like,
yeah.
oh yeah. He's like, yeah, did you put any money aside for taxes? I'm like, don't
Wait,
they
what?
take that when they?
No, not when you're
No, not for-
1099.
Yeah, exactly. So that was honestly a quick lesson, but I immediately got an accountant, this guy Norm, and I said, Norm, I want you to so I moved the money into my bank account, this corporate bank account. And I said, Norm, you manage it. I just put me on a payroll, whatever, for 60 grand a year. That's fine. Cause they're covering my expenses. Even at 60, it was like,
Oh yeah. It's like 120.
whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that opportunity, I worked there for 2 years, freelancing, built this thing. They almost fired me day one when they saw how young I was. The manager, Darcy, pulls me aside. He turns white. You gotta understand, they signed the contract. I moved to Fort McMurray. I show up day one at the community college where they're training all these new people on this software.
You're younger
I'm
than
the software architect. I'm half the age of all the people at this oil company. And he comes out to greet me, looks at me, almost goes white, walks me down the hall to have a stern but direct conversation. Somebody made a mistake. I apologize, but I don't think this is going to work out. My heart sinks. Now I said, I'm curious, like, why do you say that? And he goes, the truth is I thought you were older with more experience, clearly. And I said, Darcy, I know I don't look it, but if you give me 2 weeks, I will show you that there's nobody better in Canada to help you deploy this software. I don't know where that came from.
Wow, what a good line.
But I just said it. And as soon as that day was done, he introduced me to everybody. All their faces was like, what the hell is this? I went, now this is how long ago, this was 2001. I went and got a library card. And I went to the library and I bought books, or I pulled out books on project management, productivity, leadership. I literally read all the books that I know that I didn't have the experience. I was a software guy, but I didn't know anything about statements of work and Gantt charts and all this stuff, nor do I wish I ever did, but I had to for that position. And 2 weeks later, Darcy goes, I'm impressed. I think this might work out.
Wow.
Yeah. So that became the seed capital to eventually my third company that finally worked.
So now fast forward to today, you said earlier in the interview, you said you really like building new companies.
Yeah, my life today looks like I've got SaaS Academy, which is the largest coaching organization for software CEOs. I've got Big Band Software, which is our $100 million holdco. So we buy software companies. And then I have a lot of work I do with at-risk youth, and I would put my media stuff in there, kind of the book and whatnot. And my happy place today is really just helping companies grow. So like even coming up with ideas, I've just learned a long time ago, like they're a dime a dozen. Like I could sit here and come up with 15 different great SaaS ideas, but unless I don't have the team and the leaders in place, like there's real effort, right?
Yeah, so, it's interesting to know that 92% of companies in the United States will never hit $1 million a year in top line revenue. And you made a comment earlier about, these guys that thought $500,000 a year in revenue were like living the dream.
They want it.
Because they're taking home, their net is probably $80,000 to $120,000 a year. And they're
good.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like you got a boat.
Yeah, and this is
you're doing parties.
East Coast of Canada was like one of the cheapest places in all of Canada to live.
You're the richest dude in the town, right? Yeah. So what keeps people from going past that? What keeps people going?
Oh, 100%.
The technical side of things.
Yeah.
There's mindset, and I'd like to talk about that too. What's the mindset of somebody that doesn't grow past that? But also, what do you think the structure and the problems are? Because they're always going to be identical. Like whatever the company is, it's like, oh, you guys are dealing with the same crap. What is the thing blocking people from going past $1 million a year?
Software or just general business?
General business.
General business is 100%. I usually see the kind of the upper ceiling at about 1.5, 1.2 million. And it's the skill of learning how to work through people. So like you can be a really good $500,000 a year income earner, and you're essentially the genius with 1,000 servants, but you probably don't even have a servant because you don't know the skill that you need to acquire, which is learning to delegate. Like that.
Or the mindset of going from I can do this myself to saying I can never do this myself.
Totally. Yeah.
And a lot of us, especially growing up, blue collar, like my dad's 65, still works.
Yep.
Right. And he has the statement of if you're going to do it right, you do it yourself.
Yeah. There's all these beliefs we learn.
And I watch my dad, he's a cabinet maker, and I watch him with his crew. So like when we moved into this house, we redid the cabinets, and I was like, I'll give my dad the work, right? I could have hired any one of my guys. Give my dad the work. My dad, who will never listen to this podcast, So I can say what I want.
Yeah.
My dad comes in, his 3 minions. He treats them like minions.
Yeah.
This is why I'm called, because I'm like, dude, those are your team members, bro. Those aren't minions. But he treats them like minions. He will complain about them
In front of them.
Yeah. And I go, oh, there's the thing I had to fight through, right? Because I learned the same thing in my 20s.
You watched it.
I watched it and I adopted it. And my first employee was really hard to hire. I actually had a coach forced upon me. I had a guy forced me to hire a coach. I was a loan officer, and he says, you can't be on my team unless you have a personal coach. I was like, personal coach? What the freak do I need a personal coach for,
cool,
bro?
though.
Really cool. Steve Mike's, he's kind of like my Brian in a sense, because I needed a mentor besides my father. You needed a mentor besides your father. You need somebody who could freaking wrangle a raccoon in a sack,
man.
bro. You were crazy,
Zach,
freaking crazy,
exactly
dude.
what it was.
So he puts me in touch with a guy named John. My second time meeting John, he was charging me $500 an hour. He goes to fire me because he says, you're not doing any of the shit I told you to do. I told you to hire somebody, and here you are. You have a company that's doing, I was doing at the time $3 million a year by myself.
Wow.
Which is crazy. It was a construction company. So I could, the Band-Aid was I could subcontract really easy.
Yeah.
But I had no admin whatsoever, no bookkeepers, no nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm doing the estimates, I'm doing everything. And he stands up to fire me, and I'm like, no, this has been so great, like hanging out with you. These last 2 meetings have been so great. Don't fire me. He's like, hire somebody right now. And he forced me to pull up my phone, throw an ad out right there. I hired somebody the next day. She stayed with me for 10 years.
It's amazing.
That's not normal, though, because most of the time, like, you hire people, you have to have the right systems, the right processes. You got to know that's the right seat on the right spot on the bus. Anyway, that was the hardest thing for me. I was willing to beat my head against the wall to hit $3 million a year in revenue by myself before I was willing to put $1 into hiring somebody else.
So crazy.
Are you seeing this a lot in software companies?
Yeah. I mean, software, the hardest part is for people to achieve what's called product market fit, which means that you have a product that's good enough that the market pulls it into it, right? So that it doesn't have to be like hard sold. You can sell anything. I mean, like, it's vaporware. I mean, 1999 taught me that front row seat watching all these companies sell stuff to people. They didn't even know what they bought, but it was like the internet. So, so step one for most software companies is build a product that there's a market and they like it, right? They stick around. Let's call it that. After that, it's all people, right? And it's about understanding how to work through people, how to delegate, how to trust, how to lead. I mean, that's why I wrote this book. Buy Back Your Time is literally the methodology that I've used to scale my software companies. I've exited 3 software companies. It's how I buy software companies today, hire CEOs. It's why I'm able to, you and I share the same passion for our family and putting out content. It's like we end the business side, and there's zero chance any of that happens if we don't develop ourselves to be able to really value our time. And the problem is, and I'm assuming your dad, if we actually asked him, like, what do you think your hour's worth? He would give you a low number because most people, and this is what I have to, like, entrepreneurs starting off, I always tell them, I said, the 2 problems you're going to have is, number 1, you don't have a high self-worth.
Yeah.
And you will never get a penny more than you think you deserve.
Well, I think a lot of us blue collar guys that start off, having 12 kids in my family, we didn't have a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And my dad was working 2 jobs. So the recipe that I was laid out in front of me, that was the recipe.
Yeah.
So my worth was, I'm a workhorse.
Yep.
I'm a tractor. Put me out in the field. That's my job.
Work.
And so you also learn statements like stay humble, too big for your britches.
Totally.
You learn all these things, especially from like a religious background. You start learning these types of things like be quiet, be still, be reverent. Don't be the person that's, pontificating or whatever it is. And don't be full of yourself. And so when you have these moments of have self-worth, people confuse, at least I think people are confusing, I have self-worth with I'm being cocky.
Yeah.
Is that what you,
they're completely different. Like your self-worth has nothing to do with how you show up in the world. You could have somebody who's got no money and be cocky. You can have somebody all the money in the world and be cocky or not, and be humble. Like, and your decisions to live a certain lifestyle is not connected to that. Like, they're actually different. It's almost like the motivation behind the action, not necessarily the action. So I always tell people it's definitely the self-worth, right? Like, you need to feel like you deserve more.
So let's give me a depiction of this. So you have somebody that's maybe doing, and maybe somebody comes to mind, you have a specific story, but let's say somebody's doing $1 million a year in revenue. It's them by themselves.
Yeah.
They come to you either to get coached at your academy.
Yeah.
You're not the largest. You're the only one, man. Everybody else doesn't matter, right? Basically.
Yeah.
So people come to you and they go, I got to get coached.
Yeah.
And they're thinking they're going to get coached on their software. And you're going to coach them on their self-worth.
Yeah.
So what's some of the principles or the things that they need to work on in order to overcome them?
Yeah. So what's interesting for me is like, I talk about this in my book, this guy named Stuart, who like, he actually got pretty far along where he had like a team of 3 or 4 guys and they had this software, and his background was in finance. He taught himself how to code, and he grew up in the same environment that we had.
Impressive.
Where he was like, I do the work. I make the sandwiches. I take out the garbage. I do all this stuff. And because he could do it all, he did it all.
Yeah.
Because he could do the books, he did the books. Because he could code, he would jump in and fix bugs. Because he could reply to emails.
We were taught to have pride in the work.
Yep.
No matter what it was. Yeah, and you talk about taking out the trash. Dean Graziosi told me this story to me the other day. He says, my mom came to visit me about a year ago, and she says, hey, honey, do you want me to take the trash out? You know, what day does your trash go out to the street? He goes, I don't know. And she says, what do you mean you don't know? Don't you have to take the trash out to the street? He goes, well, somebody does, but I don't know who they are and what they do. She's like, wow, you have gotten too big for your britches, Dean.
Wow.
And then this is what he did. He broke down, well, Mom, this is what 1 hour of my time is worth.
He went there.
Which is where you're going.
Yeah. Well, on that, I was in Nashville, my buddy Taylor, and my dad was at my event. So he was with me for the day, and Taylor was showing us all these real estate projects he was working on. My dad loves real estate. And we're driving around, the book had just come out, and Taylor read it, and he was like, a big fan of my stuff. And he knows like my background in business. And my dad's listening to me tell Taylor different strategies to improve his operations and this. And my dad just punches me there. He goes, Jay, you really know what you're talking about? He goes, I bet you could do consulting to the biggest companies, Dan, and you could charge $250 an hour. And Taylor looks at him and goes, Mr. Martell, if Dan's doing $250 an hour, I'm buying out all of his inventory. Dan, you in? And I laughed. I said, Dad, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable if I ever told you what my hour's worth, to what Dean did with his mom. I've never done that. But I think when people understand,
he broke out a whiteboard, bro, to his mom.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I always say, talk to my team and they'll tell you how, cause my dad's the same way. He's like, how do you not know what's going on in your life? It's like, cause I have incredible people. Like I've invited my dad to board meetings. Like, do you just want to meet these people so you know they're real and like, this is a real thing?
Cause he thinks I'm
a 13-year-old kid still. And I love him for it.
Well, it's because you also have good work-life balance. So he sees you play probably a lot. And you're out boating with your friends. You're doing all these things, which is the opposite of how your parents and my parents grew up. It was like, no. Once you're 21 and you're married and you have kids, there's no more playtime. It might be like a road trip with the kids to go camping. Yeah. And that's about the extent of your vacation. Yeah. So you're out there playing and he's like, you don't have any responsibility. You don't have anything really going on.
No, he thinks the whole thing's going to crumble because I'm not paying attention.
When your book came out, your dad still thought $250 an hour is what you could charge?
It's so funny, man. And he read it. Like my dad, he didn't read it. He listened to it. And every day he would call me to tell me. And this is literally, if I call I should do this sometime, just call my dad and have him riff, because I've done this. I put him on speaker. If I'm with clients, I'll be like, watch this. I'll ask my dad something. He just goes. He's just so funny, but he'll say stuff like, geez, you really know what you're talking about. Like, it's so great. So he'd read the first chapter and he's like, whoa, Dan, it's a really good book. And I'm like, thanks, Dad. He's like, yeah, where'd you learn this stuff? I said, Dad, I've been doing it for a while. It's like, yeah, but I mean, it kind of almost sounds like you know what you're talking about. And I'm like, yeah, I appreciate it. And literally, and the whole time. And he would just call me every day. He'd listen to a new chapter on his walk. And then at the end of it, I remember he's just chuckling. He goes, I think you actually wrote a good book. And I'm like, thanks, Dad. Like, so it's funny because like I have boys and I see them in their 10-year-old self. And someday they're going to be 24-year-old men. Oh, yeah. And I'm still going to remember the time Noah pooped himself and Max, made him, did some dumb, you know what I mean? Like, it's just.
You think that's how your dad kind of still sees you? Sees you?
Yeah. I mean, he literally, if you can ask my wife, Renee, every time he sees her, he goes, Renee, we love you so much. Thank you for not giving up on him.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a joke, but he's not joking. He's serious.
He Renee sees the image of you in his mind. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just
like my younger sisters, when I see them and they're getting married and having kids, I go, aren't you 14 years old?
Well, it's just because our parents don't even know the word personal development.
Right.
And this is a big idea that I joke about it today, and I have one of the, like, I grew up in a lot of chaos, and I have a remarkable relationship with my parents. Like, my dad's my hero. My mom and I talk every week, like,
which is amazing considering what you put them through.
But here's why, and this is what I hope everybody that's struggling with the relationship with their parents, especially the driven entrepreneurs out there that are frustrated because your parents still treat you that way or don't see your potential. Two things. One, I think the people closest to you are too close to see your greatness. Mm-hmm. That's one. They're just too close to see your greatness, and it's okay. Two, you got to understand that they grew up in an environment where they never, ever, my dad's never read a book on personal development. My book may be the first book he's ever read. So how can I ever expect him to do the work to become adjusted the way I have for 20 some years done the work, like real personal development work? So I had to ask myself, even with my mom, because my mom, she'd still make some bad decisions and it create a lot of feelings. And I just had to ask myself, like, am I going to wait for my mom to overcome her demons for me to have that relationship? Or am I going to get to a place where her demons don't affect me anymore because I've done the work? And I had to accept that. And now that's why I'm able to have them in my life and it doesn't affect me. I understand it. It doesn't bug me. I get it. It's their narrative, their story, their experience, but I'd rather them be in my life than not.
Yeah. I got to work on that better. I've got, how old are you? 45?
44.
44.
43 turned 44.
So I've got mom, dad, still married, 12 kids. They had 12 kids. I had a brother named Corbin who went through the exact same story that you went through as an adolescent. Boys camp, ran away. Even the boys camp was in the middle of nowhere. So to the point where you couldn't run away.
No.
He still ran away, stripped off the clothes so that he couldn't tell. So he stole clothes from something and the police still caught him. Like all the things, guns, adult magazines, drugs, everything you could imagine he brought into the house. He got addicted to drugs, multiple things, and he ended up hanging himself. Oh. So my mom is going, like, I think for the last 15 years has gone through the trauma of not, being able to recover from that.
Yeah.
And so the challenge of having them in my world when I'm trying to build my own world. Yeah. And then I'll give you a good example. Like a couple months ago, my uncle, who hasn't seen me in 12, 13 years, my dad knows I'm traveling a lot. I'm doing stuff. So he goes, hey, I'm going to go over to Pace's house and just show my brother my son's house. I didn't know that my dad even felt comfortable doing that. Love my dad. There's no distance there. It's just I'm not going and trying to build a stronger relationship with them because I feel as an entrepreneur, if the more I'm around my parents, the less money I make. The less I'm around my parents, the more money I make because it's just an energy that I feel I get sucked back into being a child, right? Yeah. And so he comes over to my house. I show up. They're in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh, whoa, hey guys, good to see you. What's going on? My dad's welcome to do whatever he wants. Brought my uncle to the house.
Because he's proud of you.
He's proud of me.
It's awesome.
But then my uncle goes.
Doesn't know how to handle it.
He says, I remember when you used to shit your pants on the back of my patio and blah, 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 blah. Who would have ever thought that you ever would accomplish anything? I'm like, bro, I'm 40, I'm 40. And the first thing you say to me after 10 years of not seeing me is reminding me that I shit my pants.
Yeah.
So I sit there, I go, okay, I've got to run. I've got to build. I've got 600 plus employees between all of our companies that I make a decision. It affects a lot of people. So when I'm around my parents, I feel that energy shifting. Yeah. That they put me in that position of like, hey, you're our 16-year-old boy that could never do anything wrong. And they always saw things for me. But when my mom lost my brother, everything shifted. Everything changed. I mean, she's like
can't even imagine.
It's tough, right? When you walk into her bedroom, she has my brother's clothes hung in her closet 15 years later. Yeah. When you go around the house, it's like all the photos of the kids have been taken down except for my brother Corbin. Yeah. And I understand it. So there's no criticism there. It's just that she's stuck. It's like arrested development. It's like her development was arrested in that exact position.
Froze.
So it's a tough thing. And what you just said is her demons should not affect me. I got to work on that. It's a good reminder. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it does require you to communicate preferences. So for example, I don't allow my parents to speak my past over me. But that's a one-on-one conversation where I pull my dad to the side.
That's a tough one. That's a tough
And I
conversation.
say, hey Dad, I love having you over and I would like to see you more, honestly, but I'm not here to talk about the dumb shit I did as a kid.
Right.
Especially in front of my wife and her parents.
Right.
And my friends. I'd love to talk about what we're going to do next year at the ski hill. I'd love to talk about what you're working on. I'd love to talk about what your wife Di's working on. Like, let's make that the topic of our conversations, but not the stupid shit I did.
Yeah, there's a right way to do that, right?
Yeah, I just pull them aside and I did that.
It,
Same thing with my mom. I said, Mom, I love you, but if you're drinking, you're not allowed around the boys, our kids.
Is your mom still going through that right now?
She says she's not.
Of course. But you can tell she is.
When she does. We always can tell. This is literally me and my brothers. We like call each other. It's like, hey, you were with Mom. How was she? You know, or she was good. But it's to the point where none of us feel comfortable having her solo with the kids.
Yeah,
if something happened, that would just be.
But you don't let her demons affect you.
And
you just adjust the way that you are in her world.
Yeah,
essentially.
I just love her for who and I think, Pace, if I have a gift, it's seeing people's Jesus or giftedness inside of them.
Yeah.
It's what I do for kids today. I still speak to a lot of at-risk youth. It's one of my favorite things to do. And if I have the opportunity to grab one, pull him aside and just tell him how friggin' incredible he is, even though he might be going through a world of pain right now and a lot of uncertainty, he doesn't know what the future is going to hold. I want him to know that I was no different than him.
Yeah, it's like what Brian did to you, right?
I do it all the time.
It's like him pulling you to the side without any motivation, just saying the thing that you probably had never heard before from an adult.
Nobody's ever told these kids. Dude, we were at a rehab center last Friday, and we're talking to this guy, Kevin, and I was like, Kevin, where's the pain from? He goes, I saw my best friend shoot himself in the head in front of me. Sam, who's here, was there. And Sam got teary-eyed, and I got emotional, and I was like, I'll never understand that pain. But I can tell you what's on the other side of it. And because you've gone that low, you can go that high. I think the people who have gone through the most have the most to give. And I know it's crazy for you to hear me say this to you because your brain's not going to allow you to hear it the way I would love for you to hear it. I'd love to hold that space for you. I want you to know I believe it. And I'll show up here every week until you need me or you call me and I'll be there.
Wow. Those guys don't have support systems like that. That's powerful.
It doesn't exist.
Is this in Canada you guys went to?
I do it all over. You told me, if you tell me right now there's a group of kids want to hear a story, I'll go tell them a story. I do it any city, any place I go. It's my number one priority. I'll cancel my next podcast interview. They need a superhero, I think, because, they look at other people like me. They won't listen to me. Well, dude, and there's a certain group you can imagine that don't listen to a tall white guy, rich.
Of course, but understanding like, hey, I went through this, and here's the steps that I went through, and here's where I was at this age, and this age, and this age, and then this person came into my world. That story can touch somebody differently than my story. My story will not touch those people the way yours can.
But for your person, it will.
Of course.
That's the cool part of it.
Of course, I have my people that need to hear my voice for sure.
Yeah.
But the fact that you turn around and you say, hey, I'm going to go back and get these guys and I'm going to champion them and I'm going to create a space for them and I'm going to remind them things or tell them things I wish somebody else told me when I was that age. Mm-hmm. Super powerful because they don't have a mentor. They don't have anybody. It's powerful. Super powerful. Okay, so buy back your time.
It's my favorite topic because as we have alluded to, we can live a really high quality of life if we learn to let go. Okay.
I get this, but like entrepreneurs that are so driven, right? Because I'm sure that everybody you deal with, especially SaaS world, these guys are staying up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or even sleepless nights, developing, doing the things, stressing out about everything. Are those guys a good fit for buying back their time?
Every entrepreneur in the world that wants to build a business that they don't grow to hate should read that book. And I would argue it's all of them, including those entrepreneurs. Because if they're that driven, that motivated, then I guarantee they're working in a way that's inefficient. It's a math problem.
Right.
I show them. It's called the buyback rate. And once you understand it, if you do anything that doesn't support that, then you're just working against yourself.
Right.
So like my whole thing is to the degree that you have the capital to buy back your time to do things that light you up, that make you more money. Anytime you don't do that with that hour, you're wasting your time. And what I've learned a long time ago is $1 million companies were not built off $10 tasks. Yeah. There's not enough hours in a week.
So what are the things that people are doing stuck at $1 million a year? What are they doing that they shouldn't be doing? What are the things they should be delegating that
it's different for everybody.
Okay.
But usually the process, the buyback loop, starts with the time and energy audit. Look at the last 2 weeks of your life and document every 15 minutes. Just write down in a journal, what did you do with your time? Everything. Most people, and it's chapter 3 of my book, it's called The Time Assassins. Most people lose time. It's self-inflicted. It's the chaos. It's the vices. It's the, screaming at your team member, having them quit, or being too quick on decisions or whatever. There's just like a ton of stuff that you're doing that's what I call emotional shrapnel in your business. So you don't have to spend $1 to buy back any time. Just don't take your time from making stupid decisions because you grew up in chaos,
right?
And that felt normal. So when things are good in your business, you don't throw hand grenades.
It's funny how like 99% of business is mindset.
I mean, it's because it's people. Until the AIs can run the whole thing, we got people.
And I don't know that that'll ever happen. But I do have questions about that before we wrap up. But you've got people that you're auditing your time. I would imagine a lot of people you talk to probably don't even track what they're doing on a daily basis.
No, most people do not know where they spend their money or time on at that level. At $1 million, they're just trying to hustle.
They're grinding.
They're worried if they stop, the whole thing's going to fall down.
I'll be honest with you. I feel that same exact fear even today. Mm-hmm. We've got $450 million in assets, and out of that money, 2,100 units, and 1,400 of those are my own. 700 I've partnered with other people. It's like a fear that was instilled at a younger age. I know that that's the case, right? And so when I buy back my time, which I do, there's a lot of things I've done to buy back my time. I look at, why am I traveling to an office? I have integrator partners. Every business I have an integrator. They love being in that position. They love creating the culture and doing all that kind of stuff. I create the grand vision. I bring great big relationships. I raise the money. I say, hey, this is where we're going. Big grand scheme. I'll go find new businesses that we can all do together. And I have so much fun doing what I do. I love what I do. But I go, okay, I'm not going to go to the office anymore. I'm going to stop traveling. I'm going to make my whole life here. And then when I am traveling, I'm going to make it really concise and efficient. But when I buy back the time and I get the things, all I do is create more stuff.
Yeah.
Which is it I'm obsessed with that and I'm having fun doing it? I could argue that.
Totally.
Right? And other people are like, hey, let's go boating. I'm like, no, I want to create another thing.
Yeah.
This is so fun for me.
Yeah.
But maybe it's fear. Mm-hmm. It could be fear.
Yeah. You're getting into the crux of it. So like step 1 is time and energy audit. Okay, yeah. It's ATF. T is transfer.
ATF means what?
Audit, then transfer, give it to somebody else, but have a framework for how to do that.
Or eliminate.
Yeah. Well, that's like even before we get to this. That's in my drip matrix. But yeah. But let's say it's stuff that I do and I have to do, or it's got to get done. Then it's audit, time and energy. Then you prioritize anything that's red that takes your energy, that has a low cost to pay somebody else to do. You put those in a bucket. That's your next hire. And the only hire. See, the buyback principle states you don't hire people to grow your business. You hire people to buy back your time. Because if you do the first, you don't get the second. But if you do the second, you get the first.
Right.
So transfer, give it to somebody else. But there's a method for that so you don't go crazy. Some people will. And then the third is fill, which is now that you have this time back, what do you do with it? And I would argue that if you're starting off at that million level, it's the skill. What's the skill I got to acquire to get to the next level to become more? What's the belief system? So it's skills, beliefs. What beliefs am I missing about the world? Money, mindset's a great place to start. Then it's character traits, right? As you know, there's people they've got the skills and they've got the beliefs, but they got no discipline. They got no consistency. Yeah. They got no routine or habit. So like that's the character traits that lock it all in for you to become more, because what I've learned a long time ago.
So audit, transfer, and then
fill.
Okay, fill. So that's what the X is for?
No, there's no, it's a buyback loop.
Okay, buyback loop.
Yeah.
Okay, so you fill your extra time with things that will acquire new skills, new relationships, new resources, personal development.
Yeah. If you're a logo designer, you should design more logos with your time to make more money, right? Because that'll increase your buyback rate. But once you get into that loop, then at some point you're no longer doing the logo design. So then it's like, what's the next skill I got to acquire? What's the next belief I got to acquire? What's the character trait I got to develop to become more? So it doesn't matter. What's cool about my process is it doesn't matter if you're a 9-figure CEO or you're just starting off as a podcaster. Like, you will get to a place where you will feel pain if you grew in your calendar, and then you follow this process. But a lot of people don't even have the space in their calendar to do the work to learn how to get to the next level because they're busy.
Okay, so I see this all the time, right? So I have 20,000 students.
Yeah.
I think somewhere around there. And I would say the number one problem that they have with replacing themselves basically and hiring out is that they don't know what to fill that extra time with. So they have this fear of, okay, if I buy back 4 hours, Dan,
then it's wasteful.
What the hell am I going to do with 4 hours?
That is why I wrote this book. Because if you don't do that last part, which is fill properly,
you
don't get
the loop doesn't exist. You just go right back.
Waste money. Fire somebody. And it's that fill part, which is the most important part. So that's why when you talk to me about kind of where you're investing your time, in the book, I talk about the perfect week. I talk about the preloaded year. It's like once you understand what's important to you and you show me on your calendar that those things are deployed, then if you want to do more, then the only constraint is around your creativity, what I call the 4 master skills, right? It's capital, it's content, it's collaboration, or it's code. So it's like if I want to get more leverage with my hour, I have to be a master at those 4 skills. And then I can do anything. I can be Elon Musk, I can be Walt Disney, I can be whatever. It's like literally whatever you want to do. So it's to the degree you understand how to do that. Now, I also think a rich life doesn't require you to be working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Because at some point we got to ask ourselves, am I enough?
That's a good question.
It is. One of my favorite coaching questions is asking people, where are you not free?
I wonder what the answer to my answer would be. Where am I not free?
You'd want to meditate on that one. But here's what I know. That answer will hopefully lead you to a place where you realize there's no place to get to. There's just a beingness. And in that beingness, you will be more present for everybody. And it turns out if you can tap into that, you can create more.
That's the old adage of it's the journey, not the destination, right?
Yeah. It's like I was talking to an entrepreneur the other day and she's like, I was like, what's the big vision? She says, I want to sell for 100 million. I said, why? She was like, I tell everybody, F you, told you, see what I did.
Oh, it's like she's got a chip on her shoulder. She wants to show everybody that she's enough. She did the thing that people didn't believe in her that she could do.
She's at $2 million in revenue. I said, do you realize how
she's at $2 million in revenue and somebody offered $100 million?
No, she wants to get to 100.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And I said, I want you to understand at 2, you're very rare.
Oh yeah, you're in the top 5%, maybe even less.
Less.
Yeah.
I made her do the math. It's 2%.
Yeah, I believe it.
I said, 98% better than everybody else you want to tell F you, and you're saying you need to do 100 million?
Yeah, you could go around and see 100 people at, let's say, a football game, and you go, I'm better than you, I'm better than you.
And if that's the thing,
count 98
yourself.
people and just go, I'm better than 98 of you.
And I go, and you get to do that today. And she literally broke down. She started getting emotional.
Wow.
Because she realized there was no place to get to. I said, here's the cool part. You are enough today to tell them all, F you.
Yeah.
Something tells me you don't want to tell them that. You just wanted to feel like you weren't broken, that you were valuable, that you were resourceful, that you were not all these things that somehow, somewhere along the way, somebody told you were, that just are not true. And you've been working your way to get to a place to prove to yourself. And that's what's fun for me is like, I know I'm known as the software guy. Now I'm known as the buyback guy. But my favorite thing in the world is to help very driven creative entrepreneurs do more from a place that doesn't feel hard.
Yeah.
It's not heavy.
This is timely, by the way. So this is great. I appreciate this. Super timely. So I do a lot, but I do all the fun things that I love to do. I'm not involved in I don't manage anybody. There's no direct reports that come to me. 0. Which is amazing. I get maybe 5 emails on a Friday, and I have 2 CFOs, depending on which company that they're reporting from. And I'll get an email from both of them. I'll get an email from Molly, who's like my head of operations. She's the head of operations between me and my integrator partners. Like I've gotten to a point where I've got partners that will voice memo and text me ideas and, hey, everything's going smoothly. Hey, how do you want us to guide this product down this road? Because we're not the marketing guy. Do you have any I'll get stuff like that throughout the week, but primarily I'm in no meetings. Even at the meet, I had a meeting this morning that my partner Cody said, I don't know if you want to be in this meeting, but it would be great for you to vision cast for the first 7 minutes.
Yeah. That's a great use of your time.
Oh my gosh, so great. So he comes in, he goes, I know you don't want to be involved in the other stuff. Great. I have such great partners. I'm so grateful that I've acquired so many amazing team members and friends and colleagues and everything else. So I even have Molly buffer between them and me so that I could just do the stuff I want to do. Mm-hmm. However, the want, maybe there's fear here, or are there people that truly just love doing what they do and they want to work 12 hours every single day? Or am I a lunatic? Because I have the freedom to do what I want all the time.
And the cool part is there's no right answer. And anybody, literally, I had a woman the other day attack I'm assuming you're friends with Alex Hermosi. He was and she attacked him because he was like, if you're complaining because you haven't taken a vacation in a while, you got to remind yourself you own the business. You know what I mean? And she went off on him about being a workaholic and all this stuff. And like, I'm a guy that wrote a book about the integrated life and all this stuff. And at the same time, I love that message because it's just honest. He is very unapologetically communicating that if that's what you want to do, then do it and don't worry complain about other people's opinion.
Yeah, you'll never hear me complain about that. I think I'm very well integrated. So like my next week, for example, biggest conference in real estate, I'm the keynote, and I'm so grateful that I am the guy at the conference, which is great. But really the thing was an excuse for me to take my wife and my kids to Disney World and do like the VIP thing. Yeah. And then I go, oh, I'm going to Disney World after the event. I'll invite everybody in my community to also do Disney World with me. We'll do like scavenger hunts and make it super fun. So I integrate to a certain degree. I'll take my wife to the Masters. We go on a 4-month road trip in our Airstream. Like I take a lot of time off. Yeah. But I do work a lot.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is, if there's not a problem, then that's cool. What I invite people to consider is talk to the people around you, get their feedback, right? So I have a weekly meeting with my wife. Feedback is literally a chapter. It's called the F word in my book. Okay. And I teach people
the chapter is called the F word.
The F word.
F word, which is feedback.
Save your business.
It's so good.
Yeah, because to me, I need a proactive.
What's the question?
The question, this is the funnest part. The question to my wife is, how have I showed up for you as a husband? And I shut up and she can say whatever she wants. And the only answer I'm allowed to say is thank you.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Every Monday. Yeah. So, with a team member and, Ann and Sam are here, they hate it because I do it almost on a weekly basis.
Do you kind of get sick of it? Maybe you go, dude, maybe not every week, maybe like once a month, bro.
I need to know because but this is the thing is what happens amongst teams is there's moments where you'll do something, even if it's from a place of love, that just rubs somebody the wrong way because of their upbringing, their narrative, their stories, whatever. And so what I do is I always, when my direct reports, I always ask them, I said, hey, I need some feedback. And they're like, what's up? And I said, I want to be the best leader for you. The only way I'm ever going to, and I teach the whole word tracks in the book. And the core concept is you got to ask them to think of a moment where you did something, even if it's small and it doesn't register.
Are you getting really nitpicky at this point?
Oh, dude, it's like, they'll say something, but they'll always discount by it's not a big deal. And I go, I know it's not a big deal. You got it? Pace, you got one? Perfect. I'd love for you to share that with me.
Is feedback one of the 5 love languages?
No, it's dance.
He's made one of his own.
6.
Always creating stuff.
Yeah, 7 might be software. But think about this: is what you're doing is you're allowing a release valve to be open
instead of a festering.
Yes.
Of even though it's really small, it could go on for 3, 4, 5 months. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
And they might talk about it at dinner to their spouse.
Oh my gosh.
And So what I do is
you're not doing that, are you?
No, maybe, probably, but it's all good, right? Because they know that's the thing. But the strategy is get the feedback, repeat it back to the person. So if you said to me, hey, Dan, we were scheduling this, blah, blah, blah. I said, so Pace, what I'm hearing you say is, I repeat it back. You feel heard, seen, and appreciated, which is the love language of any team member.
Yeah, any human.
Every person.
Yeah.
Heard, seen, appreciated. And then I go, did I get that right? And they go, yeah. I go, cool. And then you get to make a commitment. You can either decide to change going forward or say, I appreciate that feedback. I just wanted to give you some context on why that happened. Not that it makes it right for you,
But if you understood the context, maybe you understand. Maybe
you
it was
just
a,
at least understand
it was a one-off thing.
I'm sorry still. I'm still
Yeah.
sorry, and I appreciate you sharing that feedback. And honestly, we're good. I could stop there and it'd be good for 80% of the people. But what I love is the feedback, and I go, thank you. Here's what I heard you say. Did I miss anything? They go, no, that sounds right. Perfect. Here's what I'm going to commit to you. When I say that to my wife, and I say, I will never leave my cup next to my bed ever again.
Okay, that's an example, but what's something that she actually would say about you?
Oh, that probably. Oh, she's done everything, dude. When you do this every week, trust me, I've worked through a lot of stuff. Come on, Pace, like all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a big part of our life. I mean, we do quarterly couples retreats. We do our weekly meetings. We invest in our relationship. We had a family coach come and live with us and watch us interact for 3 days. Oh yeah, there's levels to this. But again, why? Because I want to live the coolest life
now I feel like I'm
possible.
failing, dude.
No, there's opportunity, man. That's why we're friends.
You gotta coach
Literally.
me on this stuff.
Yeah,
man.
I'll introduce you to Brooke. She's incredible. And
She lived with you.
she flew up. She's from California. We flew her up. She lived with us. She woke up in the morning when we got up super early and watched and interacted, and then did sessions with our boys. She did sessions with Renee and I. She did solo sessions. And she gave us corrections, dude. It's like, what, you do this in business? You hired a coach.
I did, yeah. I always hire a coach. I think
but isn't that fascinating? If you ask most people what's the most important thing to them, and they'll say my family, and I say, show me your bank account where you're investing in it, or show me your calendar where you're making it a commitment.
Yeah, I think that's a new perspective, a new viewpoint, which I appreciate tremendously. That's why it's good to have good friends that are working on themselves rather than friends that are just stagnant and worried about what the football thing is doing, whatever. But I invest in myself a lot. And then my partner, Cody, he'll call me yesterday. And he goes, hey, I want to invest 40 grand into having my personal coach come down and do our yearly review and sit in the meeting with us and tell me how I'm operating. And we'll spend a lot of money. Our company combined between my personal development and his personal development, a little bit of company development, probably $250,000. But I've never spent $1 on that.
Oh,
that's cool.
Dude,
I mean, obviously it's a missing.
Dude, I have a parent coach, Sean.
Wow.
Yeah, when your kids become teenagers.
I got a teenager. He's great.
Perfect.
We don't have. He's not like a raccoon in a freaking sack like you.
No, but again, you want. Think about it. You want the person that, like, Sean's got 30 years of talking to parents about their teenagers.
I do want that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like,
he literally gave me a framework to communicate with my 10-year-olds so that when they're teenagers,
okay, I need this. I need this for my daughters. I have you don't have daughters?
2 boys.
Oh,
I know. I've heard.
I'm so
my
in
brother
love.
Had 2 daughters.
I'm so in love with them that I basically bought this house to have a guest house next door, and I said, that's where you're going to live the rest of your life. You will not be getting married. If you do get married, he will live here. He will work for me. I will watch that man like a hawk.
Yeah, and he better not hurt you.
I mean, I don't really feel that way. Obviously, I have to let go at some point, but that's a worry that I need coaching on, that I'm not there yet. She's 5, she's 2. We also have another boy coming in, but I do have a 15-year-old boy that biologically is not my son. I adopted him when Laura came into my life 15 years ago. Yeah. And he's done incredibly well, but he's at that age now where it's like he's going out, making out with girls. Yeah. It's like that age. Yeah. It'd be great to have some conversations about that. I would love that connection. 100%. I mean, most important thing I need to do is read your book, because this is why I was leading on and saying it's timely. Dean Graziosi and I have been friends the last couple of years. He speaks at a lot of the things that I do here local because he's in Scottsdale. I use his studio for a lot of things.
See him next week.
He's awesome. Yeah. And he came and spoke at my mastermind, and he voice memos. He's a voice memo guy, and so am I.
He's the first person to send me a voice memo.
5 minutes long.
Yeah, and that I accepted, because normally I reply and say,
don't do. You're like, don't send this.
But
you're like, he's at a level that this is justified. Yeah,
so
I get it.
I'll listen.
I am a voice memo guy. I love it because I can just drop a 5-minute thought to you while you're driving. You can listen to it. Avoids a phone call. All the things. The things I used to hate as a contractor, or even for 8 or 9 years, the last businesses I built, people are like, let's have a meeting tomorrow. I'm like, how about we just talk right now? And so I'd rather, my partner, Cody and Josiah, they are addicted to meetings. I don't want to be in meetings. So voice memos are great. But he sends me a memo and he goes, hey, what do you want me to speak about at your mastermind? And I said, I want you to set the framework for the hot seats. He's been masterminding for 25 years. He's like the OG. Mastermind.com. So he comes in and he talks about this, and he ultimately touches on it for about 3 or 4 minutes, but it was the 3 or 4 minutes I needed to hear that day. right? Similar to what you're talking about with these guys you're going and talking to that are troubled teens. Maybe they're not ready to hear what you're having to say. But in that moment, 2 weeks ago, Dean said exactly what I needed to hear, which was, let's go back and do an energy audit. Let's go, what do you call it?
Time and energy audit.
Time and energy audit. His wasn't as eloquent as what you're saying. It was very much like glancing on it. I went up to my whiteboard in my office upstairs and I wrote down everything that I know pushes the needle on all of the things that I bring to the table. Most of what I bring to the table in all of my collective businesses now is I'm the rainmaker. So if somebody says, hey, we have a new product, we have a new this, I'm the one that came up with the product idea. I'm the one that came up with I got people enticed to come on the team, right? I create the general culture. I'll go raise the money. I'll go do the things. I'll build the relationships that we need to find the person to sit on our board or whatever it is. I do all the fun things, at least for our personalities, right? And I looked at everything that I know moves the needle. And then I went over to my calendar 10 feet away and I was like, what the freak is all this other crap?
Noise.
I have a lot of noise. And so it's really timely. I need to read this book.
Well, that's why when you say like, I'm happy, I'm driven, I'm creating, why am I creating? It's like, I just think that people that want to create more, if you understand the 4 master skills, it's unlimited. And it's really just about being honest with yourself about like, where do you deploy your time? And is a thing that is green really green, or is it yellow and I'm bullshitting myself?
I guarantee you there's some things I'm bullshitting myself
Dude,
about.
I used to do it. Ask Ant recently, I resigned from a board. I would stop going to another meeting. Like
he would say yes to too many things, right?
It's not, I don't even say yes to a lot of stuff, but I would allow myself to do things, maybe longer than I should, that I'm no longer needed at, because it's just what I committed to, and I haven't renegotiated those expectations.
You and D, are you going to be on his podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to ask you all the questions that he asked on his podcast. And that's one of the things he said the other day. He said, yes, we'll get you out of Egypt. No, we'll get you to the promised land, right?
Yeah.
And it's like everything that you said yes to originally, being the good guy, volunteering, stepping up, working really hard, all these things that got you to where you are.
Yeah.
You ultimately become fearful of letting those things go. Yeah. You've obviously become a master of that. I did a great job of that professionally, but then what I did is I created more things to do
at this level,
so which is creating more things.
Here's a strategy that people might want to hear is that if you want to grow, half of the stuff you do this year, you cannot do next year.
Do you do coaching?
Yeah.
You should coach me. Can I hire you?
Yeah.
I'd love to go through my calendar and go, this makes me this much money. This makes me this much money. When I do this, and you question me. Because at some point, there's nobody that can give you actual advice. Do you know what I'm saying?
100%. It has to come from within.
Well, that's part of it. But also, I'm not going to take advice from people that are making...
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Like,
the
higher you climb...
Like business coaches that can't even build businesses.
There's a guy, people told me, he's a great business coach. I go, cool, I'm going to go hire him. This is 2 years ago. I hire him. He goes, all right, so let's talk about your businesses. I sit down, corporate structure, money that's flowing up, I got a family office that runs my money and He goes, I didn't even know a family office was a thing.
Yeah.
I go, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. And so you realize the higher you go, the more you achieve, the less people you should take advice from.
Totally.
And when I was sitting with Tony Robbins, he says to me, there's probably 15 people on this planet that you will always be able to take advice from because you'll continue to skyrocket.
And they're going to grow too.
They're going to grow too.
Yeah.
Most people, you have these friends, I have these friends that they stopped growing 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Personally, family-wise, financially, whatever it was.
Up shop. They're good.
I got holes in my family thing. Harmony exists. Happiness exists. No fights. My wife and I are just, it's amazing. But I'm like, could it be more? The answer is yes.
Always.
Buy back your time. Did you do an audiobook as well?
Yeah, and I read it, which makes no sense as the guy who wrote the book.
No,
but
dude,
I had to.
That's meaningful.
Yeah, and I added bonus chapters at the end of every chapter where I literally dissect where people get that chapter wrong. So I really go into the meat and potatoes of it, and people have really enjoyed
Audible.
that. Yeah, on Audible.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but it's on Kindle. It's at your local bookstores.
I'm gonna get
more
this.
copies week over week.
So if I was going to hire you as a coach, what would you suggest I do before I hire you?
Nothing. I think people that clean their house before they have the cleaning lady show up are silly.
I agree with that, but you don't want to teach me like terminology on the first call, right?
I don't mind. It's not about terminology. Like the thing with private coaching that will never happen in a book is we can skip the book. I know it sounds weird, but like literally you already know.
Interesting.
Yes. You already understand. I look around and I understand. You already get the concept that I'm talking about. We just need to evaluate things, and then I'll give you the strategies and the tactics for you to just like literally 10x.
How often are your coaching clients working with you?
I talk to them once a month.
Once a month. Okay, great.
Yeah. And I have just a small handful of private.
Amazing.
Yeah. I love it.
That's what I need.
I was telling Sam about this. He goes, why do you still do private? Because he knows what my buyback rate is. I said, it's because I'm in the arena, bro.
Yeah.
Steel sharpens steel. I cannot do what I do without continuing to support other people at that in-depth level, because I'm a practitioner first and foremost. Like I can't teach business if I don't own and run companies.
Yeah. I
can't be a coach if I'm not coaching. Some people run groups and they call themselves coaches, but they actually suck at coaching. They can't even coach themselves.
Yeah, I had a guy, I paid my first $47,500 for a real estate mentor. I got $2,500 off the price, which is why it wasn't 50 grand.
Deal. All right.
I got a deal. I found out on like second week he hadn't done a deal in 10 years, which is important because technology changes.
Yeah.
Right? Like maritime
cycles,
website
yeah,
got destroyed, bro.
Yeah.
Like things changed. So he was teaching things like putting ads in newspapers and things of that nature. I'm like, I paid this dude $47,500, right? So that's how I feel too, is that I feel like if I'm teaching real estate and
You're doing real estate.
I need to be doing more real estate than the people I'm coaching to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I need to have great systems and processes. I need to see if the market changes overnight, which it has in the last 30 months tremendously. Everybody's been riding this wave. Can I also ride the wave down and tell people this is what I'm doing to adapt, and these are the type of deals I'm going after? And if I'm not, then I feel like a phony, and I shouldn't be a coach. It's okay to be people's friends, but I shouldn't be coaching them.
I have a problem with overweight life coaches.
Gosh, dude.
I have a real problem.
Do you feel like 10% of what he says should just be printed on a t-shirt?
They don't think I'm as cool as maybe you think.
You're around him. It's because he's asking you for too much feedback.
Pace, the people closest to you do not see your greatness.
You know, I 2 weeks ago, I was jumping on a flight, American Airlines, and I get dropped off at the curb. And I tell Jamil, who I'm traveling with all the time, I go, dude, I don't see American Airlines anywhere.
Oh, no.
Nowhere. Like, we got dropped off the wrong freaking terminal. We're already late. Oh, my gosh. I'm like about to order another Uber to go to the other terminal. It's Dallas. It's like, it's a big
complex.
And this lady walks up. She goes, what are you looking for? I go, American Airlines. She says, look up. Sign for American Airlines is right above me, like directly above me. So you're that point of the people closest to you can't see your brilliance or can't see how good you are or how great you are. That hits hard. It's very true. Okay, where can I get the book?
Buybackyourtime.com.
How the hell did this guy get buybackyourtime.com?
I want to do something cool for your audience. Okay. If Anne's okay, she hates when I do this because it's going to flood her a little bit.
Yeah.
If anybody listen to this, if you follow me on Instagram, that's the only, little bit of give and take. Follow me on Instagram, send me a message and type EA PACE. So I know it came from your audience. Nobody else. I'm not doing it. I will send you my internal SOP that I have with Anne that she uses to run my life. Sanitize, obviously, but it'll give you a sense of, because a lot of people go, what do they do? I have a virtual assistant. It doesn't work the way you're explaining. I'll show it to you.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll send you a direct link to the Google Doc. No opt-in, no nothing.
And do you do any coaching?
No, Pace, stop freaking hiring my team. They are very busy. Anne has her own assistant.
I love that. That's great. I don't actually have an EA. I have 15 people that I have like slices.
We'll get you an EA.
Yeah. I've had EAs. They have a hard time keeping up.
I know.
And instead, what happens is I'll get really good people and I go, oh my gosh, you should run this entire thing. You're so good.
We're going to work on that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And Eric's watched it. He's like, they're not going to last. They're not going to last. Eric's been with me.
Person.
Everybody except my EA has been able to keep up with me. And so I end up doing a lot of the stuff myself. Like 2 hours this morning, I booked all my travel for the next 6 months.
I can't even talk to you right now. I'm having...
If I have to have a conversation with
Anne
this or
knows
that,
this when people say this in front of me, she's like, "Oh, Dan."
I know this is great, transparent conversation.
Yeah, no.
I have a concierge though at the airlines that like calls me directly, and I don't have to wait. She goes, "What do you want?" So she's kind of like an EA to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But there's no excuse.
All those people go through, and it's funny because Joe had me speak at Genius Network.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He's standing there, and he literally invited me to speak at his group
Mm-hmm.
for me to have an intervention with him. He says it
Yeah.
publicly. I'm brought in here because I'm finally going to let go of my inbox. And I'm like, and Eunice is sitting in the back.
So you don't check your emails?
I don't do email. Inbox 0, that's for amateurs. I'm 0 inbox.
I've been in inbox 0 for like 4 years.
No, I'm 0 inbox.
That's my task list.
I'm 0 inbox.
Well, yeah, I got to get coached by you. But I was sitting here going, there needs to be an EA mastermind. Like the EAs need to get together.
He's the ideas guy. I can see I see why the.
Yeah,
as soon as you have a free hour, you're like, I got another good idea.
All the time.
All the time.
And I've never had a bad idea in my life either.
No, never lost money.
I've lost money.
We all do.
I've lost money. I've lost money on real estate deals, and I've lost money. But man, this was fun.
It's super fun.
Apparently this is how you pick up clients.
I mean, sometimes, but I'd rather just have people go buy the book.
Bro, this is so great. Thank you so much. It's so important
honor,
for me, and I think it's people watching this right now. I hope they don't think, oh, well, Pace is a good candidate for this because Pace has it all. I would have been way better off knowing this crap 10 years ago. Like
I wrote this book for people starting.
If you read this book earlier in your career,
I'd be worth 100 times more easily. Yeah, I've seen the impact. And oh, by the way, I wouldn't have gone through all the pain I went through.
And you would have deeper relationships with your kids. You'd have a deeper relationship with your wife. You'd probably have a little bit. Do you want more free time?
If I want it, I buy it.
Do you feel like you have a good balance?
I think there's seasons right now because of the book and the media. I care more about getting the message out than anything else. So I'm willing to sacrifice it. But that was a conversation I had with my wife so that she was on board with it first. I have a framework for how I make decisions so I don't create emotional shrapnel.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because if not, it's easy for us to do that.
We're going to have a lot of fun together.
Cool.
All right, guys. Dan Martell, unbelievable. This is great. I've actually never put anything like this on my YouTube channel. We get like 5 million views a month, something like that. It's all real estate stuff, some mindset stuff, but nothing like this. So thank you so much. This was great.
It's an honor, man. Appreciate it.
Amazing.
Damn! Dude, that was the funnest interview ever because it was a conversation with a buddy, man.
Of course.
Oh,
dude. Yeah.
that was fun.